How can this be for the greater good? The greater good. Shut it!
Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today we're taking a little sidestep / we're making a little mini-series
Yeah, a little
here.
sub-series.
Little sub-series. We're going to call it The Works of, and then a director or auteur.
Or artist.
Or artist that we like and enjoy. And we have a lot of these lined up, but it's kind of like a deep dive into one artist's works in total. We're going to go through pretty much all of today's guys' films in order and the order we can, and kind of pick every bit apart and look at what we're looking at here. And here today we're looking at probably one of my favorite directors, at least top 5, if not top 3.
Yeah,
Edgar motherfucking Wright is. He's incredible, and it's almost undeniable how incredible it is. You know, like his directorial style shines through, even on in everything he does.
Yeah.
You know, like it shines through, even the stuff he doesn't directly direct himself. You know, like even his writing style can come through and shine on, and we'll talk about what that means. At some point, at some point in this episode, but we both basically we kind of want to start from the beginning because Edgar Wright, he's a big time director now. It definitely has risen up, but when he was first starting out, this was a British guy with his best friends making movies. Yeah, you know, like which is one of my favorite things about him is just like, you know, working with your best friends and making stuff is what it's all about sometimes, you know, like is being able to be like, hey, I get to work with my best friend every day on making art, you know, like there's something to be said about that in filmmaking, you know, like
that's how Kevin Smith's led his entire life.
his entire fucking life. And I think I respect that the most at Edgar Wright, and he definitely he's one of those classic like film school stories, you know, like which is what I love about him is that he's done all the shorts in school, you know, like he's got something here called Dead Right, which is just like a little short he did, and then he has his first feature film, which neither of us has seen, so we feel sorry for this.
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Yes, to be fair, I've seen enough of this movie.
Yeah.
I have actually watched a bunch of clips of this, Fistful of Fingers, which it's a comedy. It's a comedy like shake on A Fistful of Dollars, you know, like it's definitely a straight up like slapstick comedy, like with it, but it has the touches of Edgar Wright in there.
It is a student film.
It's a student film, and I really don't fault this movie, and it's the reason why if you're an Edgar Wright fan and you haven't seen this and we haven't fully seen it, you shouldn't feel too bad because this isn't what. When you think of Edgar Wright, this isn't what you're expecting.
I think it's literally a special feature on Hot Fuzz, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I think you have to really start this, which there's a couple things in here. There's shorts, he's worked on some TV, but those are very much like Edgar Wright getting his rep up, you know, like doing the film school thing, going out there and being out in the film industry and doing the work.
And just moving up.
And just moving up. And at a certain point, he gets spaced, you know, like, and that's the first real takeoff for Edgar Wright here is if you've never seen the show Spaced and you're a pop culture nerd, you missing out. This is one of the funniest shows.
I remember when you like discovered Space in college and you bothered me for the longest time to like watch it, and then I proceeded not to, like I always do.
Yeah, as it happens.
As I say, I will do it in my own time. I will get to it eventually. It's just a matter of when that eventually is. But I do get to it. I don't completely blow it off. But then like when I moved back to my hometown and I had nothing else to do, I'm just like, All right, let's do it.
And it's a very short series, only like 14 episodes or something like that.
Only 2 seasons.
Only 2 seasons, and like British TV, that means only 14 episodes because they don't make real long seasons.
Yeah, because they know when to end things, and it's sort of refreshing in that sense. It's weird how iconic The Office is, and even The Office is only 2 seasons.
Yeah, and
it's just like, it's done.
Done. So Spaced is pretty much like the first huge collaboration with Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, and Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
This is where the dream team comes together. This is where the magic begins, guys. And if you're a fan of Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright, Hot Fuzz, and
The World's End.
The World's End, you need to see Spaced. Like, if you love those movies, this is pretty much the origin of those movies, you know? Like, because the great thing about Spaced is we were saying he was doing the film school thing, but Spaced feels like the real film school. Like, he's able to do a funny show, do the visual comedy, but also he's able to do genres here. There's like genre episodes where he like kind of like makes fun of a movie or makes fun of situations.
Yeah,
like,
there's like an entire episode dedicated to like Robot Wars stuff. There's the Resident Evil episode. There's the finger guns thing.
Yeah, finger guns thing. Finger guns is epic. That's one of the most epic. That's where you go, oh fuck. Like this like if you were like just watching Edgar Wright, I feel like you would just watch and like you were at that time and you just saw the Finger Guns episode, you're like, oh man, this guy's got direct action.
Yeah, you can definitely see it as like the precursor for his films going forward, not only just the Cornetto trilogy.
Exactly. And this is, I think it's so fucking funny, and it's definitely for me, one of those like perfect shows, you know, where it like there's no bad episodes, you know, like there's like we said with Samurai Jack, there's no filler here. Like there's no lack of plot. There's no not funny episodes. This whole thing is hilarious top to bottom.
And it probably helps that it's so short.
Yeah.
That it's just like it doesn't have a chance to even like remotely overstay its welcome.
Exactly. And I feel like this is one of when you're listing like a top 100 TV shows of all time, this has to come up. If it doesn't make it, it has to at least be mentioned, you know, like in the top 100 movie. I think it should make it, but like it at least should be mentioned. Yeah. I think it's one of those things that it feels like it's an underground show in a way, because like not many people have heard of it.
I would say so.
But it's definitely one of those ones you should see.
Given from what I can gather back when I had first watched the show and then started to do like the research on it.
Yeah.
It seems not so much like a cult thing in the UK. Like it had its fans, but it was never huge.
Yeah, it just never took off the way it probably should.
Yeah.
But
it didn't do poorly.
No, it definitely did not. But it's no IT Crowd. You know, like when you got something like IT Crowd, you know, like where it's a similar vein where it's like geeks, you know, like, but like it's completely different. Like where, and I think we were just watching every film a painting RP.
Every frame
painting RP. RIP. We love that YouTube, but we're watching his Edgar Wright video to get a little bit hyped up, and he talks about at the start of that video. He talks about how American comedies just kind of like stage or improv. Is basically they film a wide shot and let the dialogue handle it. Yeah. And then Edgar Wright actually is doing visual comedy. And I think Spaced is such a great showcase of what visual comedy can do to a show. And I'm bringing up IT Crowd because IT Crowd does the wide shot and just lets the funny happen. Yeah. And Spaced, at least you could feel Edgar Wright's hand behind it. You know, like when we're throwing around the word auteur, we mean it with Edgar Wright. He puts himself in these movies and shows. You can feel him. You know, like, and that's what's so funny about it.
Yeah, even though like most of his films, as far as like the writing perspective is concerned, are collaborations. Like the Cornetto trilogy, all 3 of them are written by him and Simon Pegg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'll give it, those are fucking some of the funniest movies.
Yeah, and then Simon Pegg would go on to just write his own stuff.
Yeah.
Like, him and Nick Frost, like, went on their own, and they wrote Paul.
With some script editing from Edgar Wright. It says it's uncredited. Yeah. I looked it up.
Paul's not bad.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen Paul because I was kind of
it's not bad. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where, like, it feels like she's like, this is not the Cornetto Trilogy. What is this non-canon bullshit? But yeah, it's good for what it is.
It's good for what it is.
I mean, again, Simon Pegg's still writing it, and Nick Frost is still writing it. It just doesn't have it doesn't have the Edgar Wright magic because it's not him. But when you see those pair, you expect him there to be at least further involved.
So the thing that's after Spaced, we there's something called Straight 8 that he did as a TV movie, which we're not even gonna look at it. We're just gonna but it does have Nick Frost, so congrats. But moving on to Shaun of the Dead. This is the one that even your like 13-year-old cousin knows about. Yeah. Like, if we're talking Edgar Wright movies, everyone knows Shaun of the Dead. This is the most famous. Like, I am not going to say it's my favorite, because there is a favorite here, but it's, Shaun of the Dead is the most famous. It's got the name recognition. Mm-hmm. It's the most widespread. Everyone knows it. Like, it's one of those. It was
sort of immediately coming off the coattails for Spaced.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, all right, we're done with that. Let's make a movie.
Let's make
a movie. And I mean, most of like the major cast from Spaced is in there, Shaun of the Dead.
And it's really funny because if you go from Spaced to Shaun of the Dead, you're like, hey,
the only one that's missing is Ryan. Right. Is Ryan from Spaced, but they did shoot a cameo for him, but that ended up being cut.
Really, that's
and
funny.
Then they couldn't get him into Hot Fuzz, but they did get him for The World's End as a cameo. He's the one overly nice bartender.
Yep, I remember that. I was like, hey!
Yeah.
So Shaun of the Dead is every one of these movies oozes with style. Mm-hmm. I will say it every time. Every one of these Edgar Wright's movies oozes with it. And by ooze, I mean like every fucking frame is doing something, like it is, every bit of it is useful. And that's why I think I have such an appreciation for Edgar Wright. It's kind of like when I said we were reviewing Parasite. They don't waste any frames.
Yeah.
They don't waste a moment of that movie without something being said with the direction. And you could say that about Edgar Wright pretty much all the way through all his movies. Is almost every cut is holding something visually.
Every rewatch of an Edgar Wright movie is it's like a little scavenger hunt. You always pick up on something that you missed the first time.
And for Shaun of the Dead, it's pretty fucking
the
great.
Cornetto Trilogy specifically, I've seen so many times, and it almost never fails to I get something else.
Yeah,
I pick up a little thing that I missed the other 7 times I've watched them.
It's true. I've seen Shaun of the Dead. I would say the 2 of these that I've seen the most, other than Scott Pilgrim, because Scott Pilgrim I've seen is Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. I have watched those movies again and again and again and again, especially Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is just I've watched Hot Fuzz of the Cornetto Trilogy. I've seen Hot Fuzz and The World's End the most. Yeah.
Because I find that Hot Fuzz is the most quotable.
Fuzz, yeah.
It's definitely the one I quote the most. But The World's End's actually my favorite of the 3.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far ahead, but yes. That's
a little taste of what's to come.
That's a little taste of that. But Shaun of the Dead, it definitely has some of the most quotable, memeable lines. Mm-hmm. We go all blow off at the Wednesday,
and wait for all of this to blow over. His mentality going into the film was he loved zombie movies growing up, particularly the Dead trilogy.
Yeah. Yes. And that's what it is. And it's so funny because he makes such visual jokes about those movies in here. And
the movie opens up with the same music that Dawn of the Dead opens up with.
It's so the thing I also and if you didn't catch on, Edgar Wright's definitely one of my top directors. And there's one of the reasons is I love a filmmaker that loves film. I love a filmmaker that goes, ha, other movies, right? And you're like, yeah. Like, you know, like, and Edgar Wright does that because if there's a man who consumes movies, it's Edgar Wright. If you follow him on Instagram, you're like, he posts the DVD stacks of what he's been watching, and you're always just like, how many did you watch? Holy shit, dude.
You know,
like,
that one shot in Hot Fuzz of like Ed's DVD collection by the power of Grayskull. That was Edgar Wright's movie collection.
No way.
That was
That's
his
crazy.
movie collection. They said they did add a little bit to it from like other people on set just to fill it out a little more, but he said like the bulk of those movies are mine.
Wow. That's, and I love that.
Yeah.
And Shaun, and the Cornetto Trilogy is full of references to other movies. Like, and especially Shaun of the Dead. But I mean, the whole point of the Cornetto Trilogy is for these guys to do genre films. Like, you know, like we have the zombie film, we have the action film, and then we have the buddy film. Like, what would you say? Like, The World's End is more. It's a sci-fi.
Shaun of the Dead is definitely like horror, zombie. Hot Fuzz is buddy cop.
Yep. No, it's action.
It is action, but it is still a buddy cop movie.
But it is in the same way that like Bad Boys is a buddy cop movie. You know, like it's not about their love of each other. It's about the gun shooting.
I mean, it's weird that you say that because the mentality that he went into going into that movie between like Nicholas and Danny, he said he sort of tried to make it as if it's a romance, but a bromance.
Yeah.
Because there was a love interest written for that movie that he decided to snip out because it's just like, what if we channeled all that same energy into just this friendship?
And I hate to skip forward a little bit.
It definitely is a buddy cop movie. It just doesn't.
That.
It's just not.
Yes.
It's just not the trash associated.
We've already talked about it. I hate buddy cop movies. I don't like them, but Hot Fuzz I make an exception for because of that.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying, because
but
they don't, the conflict between them isn't like a lady or something like that. The conflict between them is them. And it's so real and it makes like, it's so funny because it's so like classic male, like not being able to talk to each other.
Yeah,
but like,
exactly.
You know, like, but it's like,
Shaun of the Dead's like horror, zombie, action / buddy cop for Hot Fuzz. I would say World's End, it's basically a alien invasion.
Yeah, it's an alien invasion film, but like it's also, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of like, I don't know.
We'll get to that with the World's End, but that's part of the reason I like it is that it's almost undefinable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's a weird way.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's but what I was saying is the genre leaning in. That's the fun of the Cornetto trilogy. It's him leaning into these genres, and especially with with Shaun of the Dead zombie one.
Yeah.
He's just like leaning into all his favorites and really showing off. And the thing about Shaun of the Dead is it shows off not only his love for movies, but music too. There's a lot of love for music. Of course, there's the obvious "Don't Stop Me Now" Queen scene where if I was ever teaching a film course, I would show that scene for editing. I would be like, do you see what we're doing here? We're not cutting on the beat because that's not what makes this great. What makes this great is cutting to the music. We're not going we're going cut. You know, like it works to the music. It doesn't. It's not a slave to it, and that's what's so fucking fantastic about that sequence. But also we have the great vinyl throwing scene where they're chucking the vinyls at the zombies, and it's so funny because
and they're prioritizing like the good ones and like the ones that are expendable.
It's so funny because of course
like, that's Liz's. It's like that's Liz's. Just like the Batman soundtrack. Throw it.
But I love that soundtrack though.
it's you could argue it's almost like an unnecessary scene because again it's obviously very not useful.
Why would it kill the zombies?
Why would it in any way work? Especially considering that it wasn't very effective when they threw the ones that actually made it. And I'm pretty sure you already had the scene where he crashed the like the glass. So obviously it takes something a little stronger than some vinyl.
But it's still fucking funny.
Yeah.
It's really funny. I think Shaun of the Dead is great at capturing real human emotion, though. Like, that's what's great about it, is it's not only being like, haha, it's a play on a zombie film, because there is a lot of movies that are like comedy zombie flicks and like Zombieland.
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead and Zombieland are not in the same category. They're just not.
Yeah.
Zombieland, it raises emotions in the same way, in a cheap way.
Yeah, I like Zombieland fine. It's never been like one of my favorites.
It's fine. It's funny.
Yeah.
There's really, really funny moments. But if we're talking about something that brings like an emotional weight behind it, Shaun of the Dead's able to pin that in moments, which is so,
and that's sort of
wild.
Yeah, and that's sort of something that's followed his entire career, is that he takes something with such simple trappings, because these are all very much like genre movies, up until like Baby Driver as his latest. And when you actually look at them as just like a simple premise, you're just like, yeah, I've seen this a million times. Yeah. But its execution is the way.
Exactly. It's about the execution, not what's in it. And I think that's kind of the point of these, you know, like, is that like, if you didn't know what you were getting into, Shaun of the Dead is a great way to like catch you off guard. And so is Hot Fuzz, because you go into Hot Fuzz being like, cop action movie, and then you get amazingness, and you're just like, oh, okay. So Shaun of the Dead,
and then you get an exercise in totalitarianism.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh
man,
oh lordy. Shaun of the Dead, I definitely, this is one of there's a reason why this is a classic. That's all. That's how I'll finish that. Thoughts on it. If you haven't seen the Shaun of the Dead, or it's been a while, this movie holds up, and it still
definitely does.
Funny.
It's funny because I think the first time I had seen Shaun of the Dead, I was pretty young, so I liked it and I found it funny, but I felt like a lot of it went over my head. And it's one of those ones that's like consistently gotten better, especially as if I gotten older. I'm just like, oh shit. There was like, I think I liked it as a kid when I had seen it, because I was a kid when I had first seen it.
See, I was a big zombie head, you know, like I love zombie movies. That's all I would watch, and I read zombie books, like so. So
it was one of those
really
things where like I
me.
definitely liked it, but it was probably on the more like superficial levels, just like the low hanging fruit of it.
Yeah,
and then like as I've gotten older, I'm just like, yeah, this is way more nuanced than I ever knew it was when I first saw it.
I also gotta give it to this movie, you know, like they're able, it is a genre film, and it's able to get the genre better than most of its movies
despite it being a comedy, it's still as nuanced and isn't afraid to take itself seriously in key moments, as it treats itself as any other like zombie film that treats the material seriously.
Yeah. I love this movie. It's one of those ones.
Even though it teeters constantly.
Yeah, like
all the time,
constantly.
like one after the other. You can follow up like a tragic moment with a comedy moment, like right up there, and it never feels like there's any whiplash.
No, and see, that's the fine line here. Is there's a lot of movies where it's a lot of whiplash. It
doesn't have that like problem I hear people complain about with like the MCU.
Yes,
where like the levity always feels just
smash
like just a smack in your face.
Yeah, and this works. It works in the scenes, like, you know, like the levity is like part of it. You know, like it's like, you know, like you have that very serious scenes of the zombie breaking in, but then you laugh about certain zombies. You know, like you're laughing about certain people being there. You know, like it's ridiculous.
Like when Mary in the garden like falls on the post and stabs herself and stands up with the hole, and they both look at her horrified, and then Ed messes with the disposable camera and you hear the
It's so good. It's so fucking good. I love this movie, and I think that it leads directly into its sequel, you know, like no, I mean not sequel. It's continuation. Like, cuz even though these are a trilogy, these are not, they don't connect.
It's referred to as the Three Flavors Cornetto Trilogy, or the Cornetto Trilogy for short. Sort of, Edgar Wright says it's sort of a riff on the Three Colors Trilogy.
Yeah.
Like sort of a little wink, a little like piss at it, but it also like ties in the fact that they're both like genre films, homaging specific things. They have similar trappings, same like cast and crew. The fact that it's like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in each of them, and the fact that there's a recurring thing with the ice cream cone that has a particular color and flavor, which is supposed to like represent the genre or like a trapping of the genre.
Yeah.
So with Shaun of the Dead, there's the strawberry because blood. There in Hot Fuzz, there's the blue or the normal because blue for the police.
Yep.
And then for The World's End, it goes more sci-fi and sort of alien-y, so it's the mint flavor. It's green.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And of course, it doesn't make much sense to American audiences. We don't have much Cornetto.
No, we don't have Cornettos at all over here.
Like, it's not really
the closest thing we have to it is like King Cones or something.
Yeah, and so it doesn't make much sense to American audiences. And maybe that's why it works. The American audiences are not... American comedy is not doing it the way he's doing.
I'll tell you what the first thing I do if I ever go to the UK is
get a Cornetto.
Get a Cornetto.
I'm with you. I'll buy that. So Hot Fuzz is next up on the list. Hot Fuzz is absolutely incredible. As an action movie junkie, as a kid who at one point in his life went, fuck, I gotta watch all the action movies ever, and then I did. Hot Fuzz is simply a delight. Like, it's not only is it fantastically directed, so sharply edited, so crafted, and the pace, man. Fuck, this movie moves.
The opening of this film is able to condense so much information to get the rest of the film going so succinctly that it's nuts, because it's kind of going at a mile a minute, but you're able to comprehend and take in everything. Establishing Nicholas immediately as just like this super cop badass who's the best one on the force.
And it somehow pisses off the other parts.
Pisses off the other cops. They can't stand him. The reason why he's demoted and just sent off into the country so he can stop making them look bad. Travels.
Yeah.
It's just all done. It's just quick.
And I feel like a lot of people will be like, it's too fast for me. And what I say to you is, grow some balls. It's like, if this movie moves too fast for you, I need you to do some brain exercises. I need you to like go outside and like think some deep thoughts, and maybe like not be a cultural despot. Like,
go outside and sit on a log and just do a Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, just think a little bit, because seriously, this is it moves, but it's all there. It's in front of your eyes. It's just take it in. And this is what showing, not telling, is all about. Yeah. This is in film school, they'll say it again and again and again and again and again and again to you. Show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. Don't come on screen and tell me that this guy's angry. Show me that he's angry, and don't just be like, coffee cup. Be like, like, show it. And some of my favorite directors are extremely good at this, like Christopher Nolan, Edgar Wright. It's incredible what some directors can do, showing visually what they're trying to say. And instead of actually having to come out and fucking say it. And Hot Fuzz is a literal master course in that. It's like, as much dialogue and snappy dialogue there is in this movie,
and believe me, there is a lot of it.
Yeah, yes.
Oh god, the amount of times I just quote Hot Fuzz at random, more so than any of the other movies.
It's true.
Is ridiculous.
When's your birthday? February 16th. What year? Every year.
Or when I was living in Holyoke, I worked at a store and I usually would have to open. Yeah. If it was like my buddy Lewis who came in to like work with me, it would just walk by him, just ghost him. Morning angle. Morning angle. Every time we would like work an opening shift together. Morning angle.
It's just, if there's, I love Hot Fuzz. It might not be like my aesthetic favorite. Like, as a film guy, I should not choose Hot Fuzz as my favorite of all these movies. But I fucking love this movie. Like, this movie makes me laugh.
What I love these movies,
it makes me like, it scares you a little with its ending. It's got a great twist. The dialogue is snappy. Like, whoo!
What I love about like these movies, especially the Cornetto Trilogy, as an ignorant donut-eating American, is just how distinctly British they are. Because like Shaun the Dead he says this on like the commentary. It's just like, well, I love zombie films, but I wanted to make a zombie film in the framework of English society
where they wouldn't have guns,
because we're the type of people who, one, aren't gun crazy, and two, are just like, what should we do? I don't know. Why don't we go to the pub? It's sort of the same thing with Hot Fuzz. Just
where they're
like,
not supposed to have guns.
All these action movies are in like big cities and stuff like that. This is my city, etc. It's just like, what if we had it in just like this quaint little village?
I love this movie. It's also kind of a great little mystery, you know? Like, if you're a mystery fan, if you're like, hey, I like a good, like, if you liked, Knives Out. If you like Knives Out, you'll like Hot Fuzz in kind of a similar way, where it's like, it's moving so fast that you might have missed the mystery, but the mystery was there the whole time.
Yeah, it tricks you by like baiting you with the like familiar tropes and archetypes concerning with the genre, so it can like pull the rug from under you. and
I give it to Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg. This is a tight movie. Like, it moves at a speed. The dialogue is sharp. The editing is fantastic, but at the end, I feel like I got everything, you know? Like, it's fast and it moves, but I don't get to the end and go, okay, what the fuck did I just witness? Like I would with a Transformers or a Michael Bay movie where it's just like action in your face. What the fuck? It's like all this happens and it's so a brisk pace, but it still all works.
Yeah, and it's all our particular lens. Because if you look at like Shaun and Shaun the Dead, it's just like, what if we made sort of like a doughy guy like the hero in all this? Just kind of a layabout who doesn't really want to do anything with his life.
That's what I love about the change from Shaun the Dead to Hot Fuzz, though.
Yeah,
Simon Pegg is
polar opposite. Like, all three movies are like a great showcase for like Simon Pegg's range.
Yeah.
Because like Shaun, Nick, and Gary are three completely different characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I think that's what's so great, and I think that's why Simon Pegg has gone on to be kind of a leading man in a way, is that he's got that range.
And with Hot Fuzz, it was sort of the interesting thing of, we already established, like, we're going to do, like, the super cop. He's like, but it's not like rogue cop with a 5 o'clock shadow who doesn't play by the rules. It's just like, no, he's
tough
actually...
as nail British cop.
He's actually a tough as nails British cop who is so by the book, overly so.
It's true.
And he also, I just love how, in spite of how ridiculous the film gets, how realistic it still tries to be.
Yeah.
Like the fact that
the deaths are super realistic.
He actually spoke with police officers as a consultants for the movie. And the first thing he asked them was, what is your biggest, like, hang up with, like, cop movies?
Yeah.
And the first thing they said was, they never show all the paperwork that they would have had to do.
Yeah, they would have had to do
with all this, like, mayhem and carnage and ridiculous's. So he's just like, that's gonna be a running thing in the movie.
Yeah, I'll be in there. It's just, and as I was saying, the deaths, like the actual, when we start getting to the bang, shoot 'em up and stabbing, are super realistic in a way and brutal. Like, you know, like Edgar Wright is never afraid to take it brutal, and I kind of love that about him.
Yeah, what's cool about Hot Fuzz is because that's when, like, the horror element starts to, like, creep in a bit.
Yeah.
Because once you start getting to, like, the deaths and stuff, it gets really, like, The Wicker Man, like Stepford Wives, kind of like, yeah. It gets like, because it gets like culty.
Yeah.
So then when you do get to the deaths, like, they're so stark compared to the rest of the movie, especially with all the gags, that it really hits home a little harder.
I think one that sticks in my head all the time is the pillar into the guy's head.
Yeah.
Like, that is, you're just like, oh, shit. Oh, fuck. Like,
also, it's a good, like...
Well, okay, they do that twice, which is why I think it's so funny, is they completely smash somebody's head, and you're like, holy fucking hell. And then the end villain gets it right in the chin, and is still alive. Like, oh, Edgar Wright, I love you for that, because it's so disgusting.
This really hurts. I'm going to need some Ice Queen.
Also, you got to give it to the rest of the cast in Hot Fuzz. Shaun of the Dead's fun because it's all the space characters and they do a good job. But Hot Fuzz brings in first off Timothy Dalton, who is fantastic.
Timothy Dalton is my favorite Bond.
Yeah.
So it's. And he got done dirty with only 2 movies, and they're like 2 of the best, but everyone was stuck on the Roger Moore days, so he kind of got screwed over. They weren't ready for it yet. They were ready by the time Casino Royale came out. But I love Timothy Dalton. This is like probably his best performance.
One of his best performances.
So that's another thing I tend to quote a lot, is just like sneaking up on a friend I know who's seen it. Lock me up. I'm a slasher. I must be stopped.
Yeah, when he runs by, it's so good.
He's just so... I just love how obvious it is.
Yeah.
And they don't even turn it around as, like, he's not really a part of it. Like, he ends up being it. And the fact that it's so, like, satirically telegraphed all the time.
It's wild. It's like one of the things where you're just like, what?
What say we drink to their demise? He's like, don't you think to your memory? Oh, yes. Cheers. And it's so funny. How do you know about the deaths? Well, word travels fast. And he just has this shit-eating grin this entire time. And I love that it just revels in it. It doesn't care.
It's so good. That's what's so great about the movie, is it's one of those things where you not only pick up on little things in the movie, but you also pick up on performance things, like people are, what they're doing in the movie, like Timothy Dalton and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, like just the little things they're putting into these tiny characters is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely head over heels for that. So he takes a tiny break from the Cornetto Trilogy after Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
He does the short Don't for the Grindhouse movies.
Yeah, I remember that.
Grindhouse, if you've never heard of it or seen it, it was Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez doing Grindhouse films, but it was a double feature put together.
Yeah.
And in between them, they put short films / trailers in between, and you have some really fucking funny ones. Like, you have some great stuff in here. It's the introduction of Machete. There's some things that are iconic about that. But you have Edgar Wright's Don't in here, and it's parody of British horror movie trailers. Like, it is just... It's fun. It's funny. And there's nothing else to say but watch it. It's so short that you there's nothing to talk about here other than go see it. I think it's on YouTube, but if not, it's probably on the Grindhouse DVD. You can watch it. We'll have to do an episode on Grindhouse one day, because I love Planet Terror. And Planet Terror.
I like Planet Terror. I actually prefer Death Proof, so that'll be the interesting one.
Good one.
Two sides of the same coin.
Because I do like Death Proof, but I love Planet Terror.
Yeah.
I don't know what about that movie struck a fucking chord with me as a kid, but that movie struck a chord. I love that movie. I was like, wow, this is trash. I love it. Like, I was just like, but okay, so moving on, because we'll get on a tangent. We have what we've done a whole fucking episode about, so we won't go into it that deep here. But if you haven't seen our Scott Pilgrim versus the World everything coverage.
Yeah, it was just the Scott Pilgrim
the game,
franchise.
The movie. We go deep on it. And I gush about Edgar Wright there. And of course, that's probably the reason why we're doing this right now. is that we were like, oh, we could do a whole fucking episode on Edgar Wright when we talked about the Scott Pilgrim episode. So I'll just say here I love this movie because it is so out of his comfort zone for what we've seen so far. If we're looking at what we've seen so far, it's so auteurish. It's so like his ideas. And Scott Pilgrim is not. It's an adaptation, but he still puts his flavor on it.
Yeah, and yet it's such a perfect fit.
Yes, it's like the Brian Lee O'Malley's writing seems to really fit Edgar Wright's dialogue style and editing style in a great way.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where you're like, they're so perfect for each other, like it's like, who came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, and it's just so good because I'm sure they both kind of influenced themselves.
Yeah, we had talked about that on the show. Like, the movie was being made and developed over a number of years, and they both did influence each other because the comic was still going at the time.
And
that's part of the reason why it follows like volume 1 to a T. And then the rest is sort of like on its own tangent, but also has like certain beats that are in both, even though that hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
It's almost like a Full Metal Alchemist thing, but they didn't do weird things.
It's less like, that is a good comparison, but it's actually more like 2001.
Okay, why is that?
Because 2001 was like a dual project between Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick. The book wasn't written. It's not an adaptation.
That's a good point.
They both went into it as a project, like, you write a book and I'll make a movie.
Yeah, that is weird.
It's a weird one.
I love Arthur C. Clarke, though. You got to give it to him there. He's fucking fantastic. And I don't like the movie, but 2001, I like the book more. Then I'm not...
2001 is a technical marvel for its day.
Of course. Absolutely.
But it is a chore to get through.
Yes. Yes.
And if you thought nothing made sense, read the book, because it leaves nothing to the imagination, which normally would be a good thing, because it's good to interpret it in your own way. But, oh God, is 2001 the movie vague?
But Scott Pilgrim versus the World is one of those just to sum it up, it's one of those like perfectly adapted comic book movies. Like, it feels like a comic book. It moves like a comic book.
Yeah, even though it's in this weird like limbo as far as an adaptation is concerned.
Yeah, right. It's great in that aspect, and I think that's why it plays so well. Is that it is that limbo of like, are we creating this or are we creating this? You know, like, and now we come together and make a nice peanut butter jelly sandwich. And so that moves right into probably my favorite movie on this list, on his directing list. It is The World's End. The World's End is masterful.
The World's End is such an odd one, because you can see exactly where he's pulling from.
Yeah.
For Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. And then obviously Scott Pilgrim was an adaptation. With The World's End, there's like elements of stuff that you can see the influence for, like tone-wise and direction-wise. But just the idea of the premise alone of a pub crawl that turns into an alien invasion. Or like an invasion of the body snatchers.
But it's
type
also
thing.
kind of like the important thing about the pub crawl is it's kind of like a last glory thing for these guys.
As well as like a man's like journey to sobriety.
Yeah. You know, like
it's all these different things at once.
It's one of those movies that, like you've said you've watched it a ton, and I've seen it like 3-4 times. It's great. It's a great rewatch. It's so good. And even though I will watch Hot Fuzz again and again, if you wanted to put Hot Fuzz on right the fuck now, I'd put it on right now. Way before I'd put World's End on. But I think World's End is way more masterful.
Yeah, and that tends to be the reason why Hot Fuzz tends to be like the favorite of the three movies, because it's the breeziest, it's the most fun, it's the most
everyone
quotable.
Gets it. Yeah.
And I get that, like, World's End, while all three films are loved, it seems to be, like, the least favorite, relatively speaking, and unfortunately it was the one that didn't really do that well at the box office.
Which is sad, because this is the one that seems...
It's the most impactful.
Yeah, it plays. Like, if we're talking about a movie that works... This movie works.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's sort of like a culmination of what everything he had learned up until that point.
Yeah.
Like, you can really tell that he did like Scott Pilgrim before that, because just the fights alone.
Yeah.
And he brought on like the same choreographers and stuff, and you're just like, huh. Because Hot Fuzz
like
was...
the long shots keep happening like they do in Scott Pilgrim.
And Hot Fuzz was playing to the advantage of it, like satirizing other horror, like the other action movies. So just like the snap zooms, the quick cuts, etc., etc. Whereas this is just like long takes of super choreographed fights.
I think that's why we think it's more masterful, is that the other two are definitely genre films. You know, like definitely like, here it is, here, like this is what we're satirizing, this is what we're doing. But with World's End, it's not exactly apparent what
it doesn't exactly fall into one box.
No, and to be fair, and really, I think that's why this is so surprising, and also the most masterful of them all is the other two were genre films, and this one just defies genre.
Yeah,
in a weird way, like in a weird way where you would say it's a sci-fi movie because it's got fucking aliens in it, but you really wouldn't, you know, like because it's really about them, you know, like it's about their bar crawl, it's about sobriety, it's about like, you know, growing older and what that means, you know, like
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's
once.
a lot. And I love this movie. It's just so well done. It's sort of hard to put into words.
And it's also, and I also appreciate it for its pretty stark ending.
Yeah, right.
Like, I love it. Here's the thing. I love dystopian storytelling anyway.
Yes.
But just that ending alone where, like, the blanks have won and he's doing the pub crawl again, but this time he's only taking water. It's just, like, an ode to, like, his newly found sobriety as he's come to peace with himself. And the fact that it's in, like, this post-apocalyptic world now that everything has gone wrong and he's, like, traveling around with a bunch of blanks of his friends with a fucking sword. And I'm just like... I could watch a whole movie just about this.
Yeah,
just about
whatever
this.
that is. I want to see that. I also think that this movie gets to stand out by I think it's Edgar Wright flexing his star power at this point, you know, like, so we have the success of Shaun of the Dead, and then we have Hot Fuzz, which we get, you know, Timothy Dalton, like, that's some star power, and then Scott Pilgrim comes in, and you get, like, that movie's so full of stars, you're kind of like, before they were big, but, like, if you go back to it now, you're like, holy fuck, like, you're like, how did this even happen?
It makes me wish that it makes me wish that Roger Moore was in Shaun of the Dead somehow, because with Timothy Dalton and Hot Fuzz and Pierce Brosnan in The World's End, you would have had a trifecta.
You're like, yes. I know, he just got to get another Bond in there somehow.
Or if, like, he's like, or if he...
get Daniel Craig's in.
Yeah, if he got, like, Daniel Craig for Baby Driver or something, he's got to get the trifecta.
What if he's in Soho? Like,
what if
he's in... but, okay, hold on. So the thing I love, what I'm saying here is that he starts to bring in the stars. He brings in Martin Freeman, you know, he brings in Rosamund Pike, you were saying Pierce Bronson, like...
This was sort of right before Rosamund Pike started to, like, hit big.
Yeah, I would say so.
Because she was in a lot of stuff, a lot of TV. She was in Die Another Day as, like, a Bond girl.
But this was before
Gone Girl. Yeah, this was before Gone Girl, and, like, Gone Girl really sent her off.
She really took off there. I just love this movie. It's so full of great things.
And as far as, like,
the group is so funny.
Yeah, and as far as Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are concerned, I love that it's the role reversal this time.
Yes. I think that's another thing
Nick
what's
Frost,
so masterful
Nick
about
Frost
this movie.
is a great straight man in this.
Usually he's the snob.
Yeah,
like and here they just make him a
Shaun of the
business
Dead,
guy.
he's like the layabout. In Hot Fuzz, he's like the naive, like sort of like rookie cop who's like really looks up to Angel. But this time he's like the no nonsense guy, and Simon Pegg is the goofball.
Yeah,
is like the fuck up,
and I love it. Like as it just shows more their range.
Exactly,
they are fantastic actors, and it really shows here. If you weren't already convinced with Spaced, and then you go through these other two movies, you're absolutely understanding how great of an actor they are by World's End. Like, there's just no question. Yeah. They just really flex themselves all over this movie. I think everyone does. I think that's the main thing about this movie. It's a giant flex. It's a giant, just like Edgar Wright being like, want to check that out?
I just love how many different things this movie is, and the fact that it's able to, like, balance it so perfectly.
Yeah.
And just, like, it's a pub crawl that turns into an alien invasion that turns into an end of the world story that's also about... That's also sort of a coming of age or coming to terms with, like, your life. You're like, Also, I love, like, the little stuff. There's that classic, like, Edgar Wright foreshadowing, because everyone talks about the dialogue in Shaun of the Dead, which is like, here's our plans for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they literally, like, beat for beat tell you what the rest of the movie is.
Yeah, right.
And then in this one, like, all the names of the different pubs
are shown off.
Yeah, give you a clue as to what's going to happen at each location. It's great.
It's so good. Every one of these movies is extremely rewatchable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming from a guy who does not rewatch movies. I'll rewatch a TV show because my wife makes me rewatch The Office every night. But I just don't rewatch movies. As much as I own movies, sometimes I don't do it unless it's a purpose. Like, you know, like, unless I'm like, oh, you haven't seen this movie?
Yeah.
And I show it to somebody. Like, that's the point, is me being like, it's a resource. It's a library.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm very much like the opposite. Like, I love rewatching movies all the time. If I feel like I'm a little fatigued on it, when I have it on Blu-ray, that's when like commentary helps a lot.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, okay, I haven't watched this with commentary yet, so let me pop that on.
But I would say that any of Edgar Wright's movies are
insanely rewatchable.
Insanely rewatchable. I was saying these guys, but every single one of it. Scott Pilgrim and Baby Driver, which will come up next, is extremely rewatchable, and I recommend doing it. I really do. You should watch this movie, be surprised, love it, and then go back and watch it again. And then a week later, watch it again.
Believe me, you'll pick up on a lot.
And it'll be and sometimes it's even funnier the second time, and then the third time you'll notice you miss jokes and laugh at those even.
Yeah, I've done marathons of the Cornetto Trilogy before. It's a good day.
It's a good day. And yeah, that's a solid trilogy to do in one day. That's not too bad at all. That's not too many movies. So Baby Driver's up next. Baby Driver.
Because I'm a good boy, I actually saw this in theaters.
Yes, you saw this in theaters. I definitely should have seen this in theaters. If there was any movie that was a flex on Edgar Wright's newfound stardom / mastery of film / oh my god, he's amazing, everyone wants to work with him, it's Baby Driver. Yeah,
the first film he made after like sort of like closing the book on the Cornetto Trilogy. And it's just like, okay, because that was
I'm not doing Simon Pegg or Nick Frost movies
because
anymore.
like The World's End was also sort of closing the book on that, and like not only have the characters here kind of grown up, but I as a filmmaker have now grown up and I'm moving on.
And I feel like Baby Driver is such a perfect way to show off all of Edgar Wright's talents in another genre film, you know, like and
working with almost none of the people that he'd worked with before. The only one who stuck around was the cinematographer that like worked with him on Scott Pilgrim and The World's End.
Nice. So the cast. I was saying the cast. Why it's such a flex. So we have Ansel Elgort, which is a star. He breaks out in this role. We have John Bernthal, fantastic. That's the fucking Punisher. John Hamm, which fucking I'll watch anything with John Hamm in it. Anything. Isa Gonzalez is fantastic in this movie as Darling, and then you have to give it up to Lily James. Like, sure, she is taken off because of this movie, but she is so good, you know. Like I think first off, I think she's gorgeous. Second off, I think she shows such great emotion in small face twitches that I'm just like, classic Hollywood, you know, like, and I love that. And then
like barring like intellectualism,
yes,
she's just so goddamn cute in that movie.
So damn cute. And then you have to bring up the real flexes in this movie. You have Jamie Foxx, who's hilarious in this movie and so good and actually kind of scary. He's kind of the villain as much as Kevin Spacey's the villain. Like he's the real villain, you know, and kind of actually scary in this. Jamie Foxx, I give
Jamie Foxx has always had like a lot of range, but
he's got a ton of range.
I can't really think of many things where he's like played like a straight up villain,
and
he's still funny and he's still fun to watch, but like in those certain moments you're just like
yikes, he's like scary, like
because
like violent,
because like Doc, like Kevin Spacey's character, is still there as like an antagonistic force, but for the most part he's still kind of like a mentor figure in a way.
And this was, to be fair to this movie, guys, if you didn't know, this came out before the Kevin Spacey stuff was known to everybody, so this was not like Edgar Wright working with Kevin Spacey after he's been outed or anything.
And
like
it does
that.
nothing to just try and ignore it.
No, and they didn't like edit anything weird out or anything like that, which they've done for some movies of Kevin Spacey's after the fact. But
like the Ridley Scott film where he was like replaced with like what's his name?
Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer.
Which I think is extremely interesting. I really want to see that movie.
I still haven't seen it.
See that
from what I hear, from what I hear, it's like seamless.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know. You're just like, oh wow.
I just haven't watched it because you got to really convince me to watch a modern Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah, you're like, okay. But Baby Driver, it's one of those movies that you'll watch once and be like, that might be one of my favorite movies. You know, like it sounds so stupid, but it's like it's an instant classic. It's a lesson in action in driving movies. Like
even almost more so than the Cornetto Trilogy, especially the first two.
Yeah,
like Baby Driver is a genre film.
Yes, and the other thing it has that Edgar Wright always has, but really it shows off here is it's got swag.
Definitely.
Like he's this whole movie's got swag. Like it feels so smooth. It feels so.
He wrote the script with the songs in mind. Of course, sometimes he had like to alter it because what you can get the rights for, etc. Yeah. But he literally like shopped the script out and would send it out to like actors he wanted for it. And would have instructions written into script for them to listen to the music as they were reading. Like when to like put on certain songs over the course of it.
Okay, so and if you loved his use of music and Shaun of the Dead with the Queen song, with Hot Fuzz with its whole ending scene basically, and a few of its other music moments, and World's End just doing so many great music. Like it's so funny for a guy who's not doing a musical, he gets musical comedy / musical movement better than most movies. I think one of the only movies that comes close to two movies that come close to like Edgar Wright's feel for music in the movies is Whiplash and La La Land.
Yeah,
I feel like those two movies kind of get the same feel.
Yeah, Edgar Wright has said that he considers Baby Driver at least partially a musical. It's just not a traditional one.
Yeah, and that's why I think this one stands out is that this is not only a genre film, it's genre bending in a really strange way.
Yeah, so not only was it like in the script and obviously in the movie after the fact, as you can see, but it was all the songs are also played on set to get the timing down,
which is
as well as like the staging. You're like, what the fuck?
It's wild. They were a slave to the music, and it works. It works so well,
and it's
definitely one of the best soundtracks to a movie ever.
Everywhere. Like the timing is just it's infectious through like every single shot. Every time there's a song on, from like Doc putting money down, doom 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 doom, and he puts the sacks of monies down in rhythm. When they get into a gunfight, it's all tied to tequila.
And one of my favorites is the end when he says, "This is my pump up song," John Hamm's character, and he puts on his song, and then it's a whole chase around the building with that song playing, and the guns are still going off to the song. It's fucking legit.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where you're just like, holy shit. It's the whole movie is astounding. It really is.
Fun fact, because Guardians of the Galaxy was also famous for like its implementation of the music with the awesome mix, Baby Driver and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 were sort of in production at the same time. So Edgar Wright and James Gunn said on the commentary track, he said they played what was essentially sort of like song tag.
Yeah.
Where they said that there was kind of like Go Fish.
What do
where
you
they
got?
said just like, do you have any Queen? And he's just like, nope. Okay. Now he's like, now I know I can use it. And they said they kind of did that back and forth.
That's really funny.
Of them producing those two movies.
That's really funny.
Which is great.
Two movies that use their music extremely well. I think it's so easy to say how good of a soundtrack Baby Driver has. Like, not only is it great visually, because you can like literally see the movie in your head when you're listening to that music afterward. Like, that's the most effective part. It's kind of like a music video.
I think it's the only like jukebox musical that I can potentially tolerate.
Yes, because jukebox musicals can be
because it ain't gonna be Moulin Rouge.
Oh god.
But the soundtrack,
that's another podcast.
Man, after
we already talked about
we did. After that soundtrack came out. Oh man, I listened to that damn thing so many times.
It's so good.
On repeat, like on the way to work, whenever I was like cooking, doing stuff in the house, just blasting it like in my room, just like I had the Baby Driver soundtrack on a loop for a good while. It's
so good, and it just gives you for me, it gives me so much hope, because I love Edgar Wright, and we were discussing earlier that some directors get older or / get strangled by the studio system, and they don't make the same caliber art that they would be making earlier in their careers. And
there's-
that's not always true. It's
Yeah, and
definitely
there's a number of factors that contribute to
Absolutely.
that. Sometimes it's just age. Sometimes their heart isn't in it anymore. Sometimes, when it comes to like youth, there's like this rebellious nature that's like in everyone. Like you always tend to have something to say. Sometimes that goes away with age.
Yeah, and I it makes me so happy.
Sometimes they have kids and they soften them up.
Yeah, it just makes me so happy that Edgar Wright is able to produce such a high caliber thing as Baby Driver at this point in the career, that I think that everything after this is going to be fantastic.
Yeah,
you know?
and he's definitely, and we haven't brought this film up yet, but he's definitely not afraid to like let the idea simmer. Like he was on like the pre-production for Scott Pilgrim, like went on and off for like about 6 years.
Yeah.
Of just him like going back and forth with it, tackling the script that's not quite there yet, tackling it again. And that's pretty much what happened with Ant-Man.
Are we going to go into some unfinished stuff here? Okay, so let's because I was going to bring up Last Night in Soho as his next thing he's directing, but let's kind of get into things he's involved in / worked on that he may have not directed, because that's important here, is that he is a writer too, you know, like, and he's a fantastic writer.
Yeah.
And I think Ant-Man's the big culprit here.
Yeah.
Ant-Man, if there's a movie that we could probably do a whole podcast on, and why this is such a fucking travesty that Edgar Wright did not direct this himself.
You were lucky that film was as good as it was. Like, I was expecting it, like, it's not great, but I was expecting it to be a train wreck.
So
given how late in the game they switched off.
Before the movie came out, you heard this story. Edgar Wright's directing Ant-Man. Great, fantastic. He's been writing it for years. It's a heist movie with Ant-Man. You're like, as a Marvel guy, you're like, fuck yeah.
That, and I don't give a fuck about Ant-Man, but Edgar Wright could make me care.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that you're like, okay. And then you hear that in the middle of production that Disney's not liking what Edgar Wright's putting out because he's not listening to them, you know, like, is basically it. And basically they take Ant-Man away from Edgar Wright. They keep his writing. You can completely tell they kept most of his writing, but then they bring in, and I think this is one of the greatest tragedies to the Marvel's cinematic whole story, is they bring in Peyton Reed, which Peyton Reed, I shouldn't shit on too much, but let me list off some of his directing debuts. Oh, big one he's got is Bring It On, the original. We also have The Breakup with Vince Vaughn and Jessica Aniston. Yes Man, and then Ant-Man and Ant-Man and Wasp. You're like, why did you give this man a fucking Marvel movie? You know, like...
Because Marvel movies aren't allowed to have people with voices, Frank. Yeah,
and that's really it. Yeah. Is that you learn that they grab these small directors, which sounds like Disney being like, wow, they're helping the little guy. But in reality, what they're doing is they're taking a director they know will do what they want him to do. You know,
and sometimes directors can have like their own unique voice.
Yeah.
In spite of the trappings of the MCU. Like, you could point to the Russos and definitely James Gunn.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they're able to do their own thing. But then there's the James Gunn incident where he lost his job at Marvel for stupid things. You know, like, for being basically an edgy comic, you know? Like, and usually I would... You know, when this sort of situation comes up where some guy gets in trouble for something he said in the past, I'll read the thing in the past and make my own decision. Yeah. When you go back and read the James Gunn stuff, you're like, so the director of Slither, you're getting mad at him for writing edgy stuff back when he was directing Slither?
Exactly. That's,
you know,
like, that was my key problem about him. Just like, you are literally firing him from the same sensibilities you hired him for in the first place.
Like, you were like, wow, he's an edgy horror movie guy. He can maybe bring
just
something.
Just like, he made some edgy jokes on Twitter. It's just like, did you guys watch Slither and Super? Like, what the hell kind of guy did you think this was?
Yeah, I feel like it's like, how did you hire the guy who directed Super? You know, like, it's like, that's such an anti-superhero movie that, like, how did you hire this guy?
That, like, someone had the instinct to be like, We need that guy.
We need that guy. Which, to be fair, they're right on the money. James
Yeah.
Gunn is one of the brightest voices in our cinema right now because he's able to speak up about things like this right to their faces, and he's not afraid to, especially now. Especially now, he just trolls them with the Suicide Squad stuff, and that they gave him back Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He's like,
Yeah, good for him.
I won everything. I got it all. Suck my dick, like...
Yeah, good for him.
Good for him, good for him.
I'm really excited for Volume 3.
Yeah.
Because I loved Volume 2.
Yes.
We talked about this before. I actually prefer Volume 2. Just like given the direction it goes, I'm really excited to see what potential he could bring to the third one.
And he said he wouldn't do a third one unless he had something to say.
Yeah, and it would be nice to have another solid trilogy in the MCU that's not Captain America.
Not Captain. Yeah. Well, first one's okay.
The first one is a solid movie.
Yeah.
But look at Iron Man, just great, and then we fell off a cliff.
Then we fucking died. But okay, so Peyton Reed gets brought in late in the game. And he basically takes the Ant-Man heist movie and he shoots in the leg, is basically what happens here. Is we go from being Ant-Man breaks into, he does a whole break-in, and it's basically Ocean's 11 with Ant-Man, which you're cool. Instead, he breaks into one place, and it's still an Ant-Man, it's a classic superhero ending, it's so I don't know.
The inclusion of Peyton Reed, and I'd say it's not so much his fault so much as doing what Marvel Studios
what they wanted.
Demands.
Yeah, no, I won't even give him too much shit.
Strips it of what would have
No, I will give him shit because Ant-Man and Wasp is a trash movie.
Yeah, it is.
It's the one of, if Thor Dark World didn't exist, it would be the worst Marvel movie. No question.
I still argue that,
Okay, but Iron Man 3 still exists also.
Yeah, so. That exists too, but I don't like either of the first two Thor movies. I still argue that first one is worse.
Really? Then 2?
Yeah, because
2's terrible.
2 is bad, but nothing fucking happens in the first movie.
Yeah.
Nothing happens.
At least it's fun, though.
It's Thor in the desert.
It's funny.
It's Thor in the desert for an hour and a half.
Yeah. It's Kenneth Branagh being I can do... It's they brought him on to do, Shakespearean stuff, and then he doesn't
That's
do
about,
any of that,
its only point, is that at least it's a little more visually interesting, and I kind of dig the sort of, Shakespearean thing they're trying to go with it.
Yeah.
Lots of Dutch angles.
Lots of Dutch.
But it's just so fucking boring.
Oh, that's Kenneth Branagh's favorite. But he loves the Dutch angle.
It's just so goddamn boring.
Yeah.
But either way, just
Dark World is the worst.
Either way...
Dark World is a waste.
What I'm about to do to shut you up is say they're both bad, it doesn't matter.
Yes, sure. You're exactly right. And the funny thing is that Ant-Man should have been bad. Just keeping Edgar Wright's writing probably shouldn't have saved this movie, but Edgar Wright's that fucking good, guys. He saves this movie from the grave over here, and the great thing is they do give him the credit. They didn't just steal his ideas and go goodbye.
But it's still definitely a sore spot for him.
Yeah, he doesn't talking about it.
To this day, he says he has not seen it.
Yeah. And I wouldn't, as somebody who wrote a whole movie and was directing half of it, and then they take away your baby, I just wouldn't watch it.
Over the course of over half a decade.
Yeah. I just wouldn't.
And he had said it was really just a mark of Marvel Studios, the landscape of Marvel Studios had changed after Phase 1.
Yeah. Because it went from being something's gotta work to being you have to work because this is a machine now.
Yeah, post Avengers and post the buyout from Disney, because it was Paramount up until the Avengers.
Yeah.
It became a different beast.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the Disney beast, is that they want the content. Give me the content. They don't want you telling them what they should have. They want to tell you.
One of my favorite lines in Baby Driver was actually lifted from his Ant-Man script.
No, really?
That they
What
didn't
was
end up
it?
using, so he just put into Baby Driver.
What was it?
It's a hat. What? Your tattoo? It says hat. Yeah, it used to say hate. But to increase my chances of employment, I got the E removed. Just how's that working out for you? Who doesn't like hats? That was supposed to be an Ant-Man.
I fucking love that line. It's so fucking good. Who doesn't love hats? And that's what I love about Baby Driver. It's full of really fucking great lines. The other thing that he wrote here, and I think it's worth bringing up, and it's kind of interesting movie, and it's way before Ant-Man, is The Adventures of Tintin. And The Adventures of Tintin is one of those projects that, everybody and their mother was thrown at. This is... So the movie itself is written by Stephen Moffat, Edgar Wright, and Joe Cornish, which are three... like, you know, like 3 fantastic writers, you know, big time writers. And then you have Steven Spielberg directing. Then you have J.D. Bell, Andy Serkis, Daniel Craig, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost. Like, it's just one of those movies that's just like, oh, what the fuck is going on here, you know? And for all its money, it's an okay movie.
It's solid, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, to be fair, it's fun.
Yeah.
But it is not, it's like,
And
it's kind of funny. It's kind of like the same hype as Avatar, I felt like, where everyone was going, this is going to push the technology of cinema forward. And it does, but does it mean it's a good movie? Meh.
Yeah.
You know,
and
like,
at least it doesn't like fall into like the trappings of like all this
Avatar.
of all, well, not even just Avatar, but just like all the CG movies that like Zemeckis did.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like Spielberg and Zemeckis are so closely tied that it's funny to see a movie that doesn't have Zemeckis involved that was animated and done better than The Polar Express and Christmas Carol and whatever.
But I think the problem is there probably just wasn't like the one person to sort of steer the ship
yeah.
correctly, because it changed hands a lot, and there was like a lot of cooks in the kitchen that no one could really commit to. Like Edgar Wright was sort of busy at the time with other projects. Moffat couldn't really commit because he was already dealing with Sherlock and Doctor Who.
Yeah, and those were big money makers.
Yeah.
You know, like. But I love the way they made Tintin. I don't know if you've ever seen the behind the scenes. It's one of the ones where they filmed it on set. You know, but they were able to live render it as it was happening. So it's like Spielberg was able to see kind of like a finished product.
Yeah, Rango did the same thing.
Yeah, Rango did a very similar thing. Where it's basically like filming it as it's happening, and rendering it as it's happening. You know, it's pretty crazy. And what's great about it is, I'll give it to Tintin, is that you feel Steven Spielberg's directing in it. When like sometimes a director who directs live action films and then goes to an animation film, he doesn't always get his style across. Yeah. And Spielberg definitely gets it across here, and I think it helps that he has that live rendering thing. So that's it. That's it for his extra writing bits. But I think it's worth saying that for he's executive produced a couple little things, but number one, and probably my favorite of like these kind of like small genre sci-fi movies, is Attack the Block. He executive produced Attack the Block, and you can kind of see his influence here. He brought in Nick Frost, you know, like he brought in the stars. And you can kind of feel the style, like, you know, like if not, you know, if you can't feel his direct hand on it, you can feel some of it.
Yeah.
know,
Attack of the Block is like one of those movies that as another one of those movies, you got to watch Attack the Block.
Yeah.
And I didn't end up watching it until like way after The Force Awakens came out. So it's just like, oh yeah, this is good.
yeah, exactly. And I'll say it to anybody. Attack the Block's great.
It still worked. It still worked as like, because it was like the ultimate showcase of like, who's this John Boyega? And you're just
who's
like,
this John Boyega?
Watch Attack the Block. But then like before Doctor Who had gone to the 13th Doctor, I'm like, this is also a good showcase for Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah, that's true. True enough. Jodie Whittaker's, you know, right there. John Boyega has said it several times. He wants Attack the Block too. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I can hope. It'd
be very.
It's Joe Cornish, so like,
yeah.
You know, he could, you know, like that definitely could be.
I've heard The Kid Who Would Be King is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's kind of a dumbass idea.
Yeah, it's a dumb idea, and it looked just like a generic kids film, but apparently it's a little better than that.
Okay.
But, I don't know.
Yeah, right? You're kind of like...
But
I mean, I love Attack the Block, so if it's got that flavor...
As far as an Attack the Block sequel is concerned, I think it'd be very easy for that sequel to be kind of meh.
Right, yeah, it definitely could be. It's definitely the flavor of what it was that makes it work. I love Attack the Block, and I'll recommend it.
But Attack the Block is also... It does have some bite to it.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of a breezier film that unless you like really like twist it and subvert it for a sequel, it might not necessarily hit. But if you twist it too far, it
could get weird.
Yeah. So it's in this weird spot.
I agree. So before we get off of Edgar Wright, I want to just kind of read the description for his next movie, Last Night in Soho, which he filmed and finished. But because of coronavirus, it has been put off till 2021, which to me... and he said it in his own tweets. He doesn't want to put anybody in danger, which, like, you know what? I love you even more. I loved Edgar Wright before this. He's one of my favorite directors. I love him, and I love that he was that he did that.
And he's very much intent of just like he values the theater experience. So he's just like, however long it takes for those
you to be in the theater,
yeah, for it to be safe and for it to reopen. Because I know Nolan is like really pissed that Tenet's been pushed back.
He's pissed about it. Let me just read the plot of Last Night in Soho, because it is kind of a mystery movie. There's been a picture or two shown off, but there hasn't been any trailers or anything. It's just kind of like we've seen behind the scenes photos, but that's pretty much it.
Baby Driver was kind of the same way for a while. At the most, I'm just like, it's called Baby Driver. I'm like, okay, that's a weird title.
Yeah, you're like,
and it's just like, and I guess it's about a getaway driver. I'm like, all right.
This one says, a young girl passionate about fashion design is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s when she encounters her idol, a dazzling wannabe singer. But in 1960s London, it's not what it seems, and time seems to fall apart with shady consequences. So it's one of those ones where you're like, what did I just read?
It sounds like he's like going a little World's End crazy.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, do it.
Do it. And it's got a great cast here, too. We got Anna Taylor-Joy, who's a fantastic actor, but we have Matt Smith and Terrence Stamp, which, if you're going to do a sci-fi film, I think it's required now you have to have Matt Smith and Terrence Stamp. I'm pretty sure it's like a union requirement. I'm pretty sure. But it's one of those movies that has got Fred and George Weasley in it, which cracks me up. I'm completely for anything that has those two twins in it again. But it's one of those things that I'm so excited for this movie, and I hope it's. I don't know why, because it's just Edgar Wright, and he hasn't shown off anything, but it made me go, fuck yeah, like when I read the description, I'm like, hell yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's just like, Edgar Wright, I'm there.
And they say it's his first non-comedic horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes me happy. Like, to see Edgar Wright go full horror is gonna be a treat, any way you slice it.
I know he said that, like, a big influence on the film is Don't Look Now.
Yes.
Which, thinking about Don't Look Now, is just like, ooh. That's
and Repulsion, she says. Which, if you've ever seen Repulsion,
I mean, those are both heavy fucking movies.
Those are heavy movies, and they kind of freak you out.
Yeah.
Like they make you feel things.
Repulsion's more of just like frightened and disgusted, yet entertained. Whereas Don't Look Now is just like, that is very, very deeply sad.
Yeah. What's crazy, it's just such a crazy movie already, like that already. To me, I'm like, okay, I'm for this, like this is gonna be too much fun, even if it's fucked up, like I'm there for it. And what's crazy is that's the one that he's got here that's is put down as actually done. But then we have a couple movies here that are on IMDb, at least, in the works. I'll just list a few of them off. We got Untitled Sparks documentary, The Night Stalker, The Chain, Shadows, Grasshopper Jungle, Fortunately, The Milk, Collider. But the most important one on this list is Baby Driver #2, baby.
Yeah, hopefully
which he has confirmed. He says he does have a 2.
Hopefully nothing happens to, like, for him not to be able to make that. But I know he said he's already like written like treatments for it and stuff, and he does like have ideas like gelling, but he's got other projects to worry about first. But thankfully Baby Driver was enough of a success for them to actually greenlight it.
Yeah.
Because I was getting worried, because he's such an important voice right now.
Yeah.
And it really upsets me that like neither Scott Pilgrim nor The World's End did well.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me sad when such a great director is not getting the box office numbers he should. Because everyone should have gone and seen these movies. But of course they're not, because they don't, and not many people sit, like, that's kind of the point of these episodes, is the works of, is that sometimes it's a great idea to go through the works of a director / artist to really understand them, and to really get where they're coming from, and to get what their art is. And I feel like Edgar Wright is one of those great voices that you can start from the beginning, and he's so clear on his voice, and it's so great to see him evolve and get stronger and just get fucking better all the time. And I love it. I'm I will admit that in high school we had to write a letter to somebody that we looked up to, and I sent a letter to Edgar Wright, and he never responded. But I don't, I didn't really get to send it anywhere. I just kind of sent it to their studio.
I'm sure
I'm sure it got scooted somewhere.
It's in his desk drawer somewhere.
I just sent it to a studio or something. Yeah. I forget where I sent it, but it's one of those things that I wrote a whole essay gushing about him, and there's a reason. Is the man is able to show his love of film and make great film at the same time. And something about that is incredible and like you said, is important. Like it's fantastic.
Yeah, stop. Look, man, we shat on Marvel Studios a bit.
Yeah.
I still enjoy the Marvel movies because I love superhero movies. Yeah. But it's just one of those things for never make that excuse in front of me that nothing original ever gets made, or superhero movies dominate the market and you never get to see anything fresh or new. No, that's not the problem. The problem is when they come out, you don't go see it.
Yeah, and that's really it. Is that I hope that Last Night in Soho comes out and people go see it. Yeah. Because the problem is that these people are not seeing these original movies, and then they complain. You're okay, you're upset that they're doing another Top Gun movie. Go fucking see this movie because it stole the star from it. They literally had one of the main actors in Last Night in Soho was supposed to be in Top Gun Maverick, and then he was like, "No, I'm doing the Edgar Wright movie instead." Which, as a film guy, credit.
I'm tired of all these Disney princess movies. Why does Disney get to make just all the animated movies? They all feel the same. Well, why didn't you go see Kubo and the Two Strings?
Yeah, exactly.
Or literally anything else Leica's made. Because none of them have done well.
No, none of them done well. But to be fair, Leica sometimes does a terrible job advertising the movie. I still won't see Missing Link, but I know it's supposed to be good.
Yeah, I'll watch it at some point.
Terrible advertising. Yeah. Terrible. But I know it's all the same people, you know? So I know it's going to be good, but...
Yeah, and I'm not expecting it to have the same nuance as... Kubo or even Coraline.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it to be more on the same length as the Box Trolls.
Yeah.
Where it's just okay, this will be cute and fun, but it won't make me mad.
Yeah, exactly.
It won't speak down to me.
So guys, if you're missing some of these movies in the Edgar Wright filmography, please go watch them tonight. They're for me essential viewing. Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast and you're missing a few of these, go watch them. They will not only help you inform your cultural knowledge, but it will help you first off laugh, second off understand where me and Deshaun are coming from when we're talking about these things. This is important stuff for if you're listening to this and you like film and you want to learn more about film, or if you're a film student and you want to learn more about film, Edgar Wright's essential viewing. And no question in my mind, especially if you want to know what an auteur is. If you want to know what a director is, something to say / do, it's Edgar Wright.
The opening prologue or that first act or section of Hot Fuzz will teach you more about editing in film school will.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, they'll show you how to actually cut an Avid, but if you want to learn what it feels like what you can make, how to make a scene feel right, because that's really what is the hard part of editing, is making something feel right. And make it work. Edgar Wright's gonna be your guy to show you what works and what flies, even if you're snappy editing like this. I won't stop. I won't stop gushing here, but I'll stop gushing here. But I won't stop gushing on Twitter. Guys, follow me and Deshaun on Twitter. I'm Yup Frank.
I'm Monica.
And please tell us what your favorite Edgar Wright movie is. We want to talk about it. Or if you're not an Edgar Wright fan, if you're hey, I think these are overhyped pieces of trash, I'll fight you, fucker. No, I'm just kidding. I'll calm down. But if really though, if you want, if we would love to discuss these things with with you. Please check out our website, galaxyandgeek.com, where you can find every episode of this podcast, as you can find it everywhere else on the internet. It's on every podcast platform. But you can also check out some of our articles there and other fun things, especially the Facebook page, which is full of the hot memes. If you're into the hot nerdy memes, and by I mean hot, I mean dank. I mean some deep dank memes. Come to our page.
And we're sure you could use a levity in these
these
times.
times. Yes, absolutely. Please go like our Facebook page, Galaxy Geek, and the Warp Shelf. They both have separate pages, but I like to keep the memery on Galaxy Geek. I'm sorry, guys. So, but we do post show things behind the scenes, little previews, everything on the Facebook page. So please check it out and support the show, because we love doing this show and we love to do it for more of you.
We'll do it anyway just to get it out of our system so we don't bother our friends about
and
it.
Family.
But hey, if you enjoy it, that makes it all the better.
That makes it all better. So thank you guys, and please watch Edgar Wright.
See you next time.
Adios.